The notice was taped to the gatepost on a Monday morning in April. Not mailed, taped. Orange paper, county seal, black ink. It said the 94-acre parcel at the end of Gravel Pit Road in Breathitt County, Kentucky, had been formally designated as county-owned land under Kentucky Revised Statute 134. 420, the law that governs the disposal of property seized for non-payment of taxes. It said a public auction had been scheduled for June 7th. It said interested parties had 45 days to file a challenge with the county judge executive's office. Virgil Amos Slade, age 74, of Jackson, Kentucky, read the notice twice without touching it. He had driven out to check the fence line along the north edge of the property, the same thing he did every Monday morning, the same thing he had done every Monday morning for 39 years. He stood at the gatepost for a while. A logging truck went past on the county road and neither driver nor passenger looked over. Then Virgil Slade drove back to his house, sat down at the kitchen table, and called his daughter. He did not know it yet, but the county had sent the same notice, different parcels, same orange paper, same statute, same 45-day window, to 11 other landowners in Breathitt County in the prior 6 months. 9 of them had not responded. 9 of them had lost their land at auction already. Virgil Slade was the 10th. He had not been born with anything. That was the plain fact of it. His father, Harlan Slade, had worked the mines near Hazard from 1951 until a roof collapse in 1963 ended that. After the collapse, Harlan took whatever work came, cutting timber, hauling gravel, fixing equipment for farmers in the valley. He rented a house on Gravel Pit Road and paid $40 a month for it until the landlord raised it to $65, and Harlan told him he could find someone else. Virgil was 11 when they moved. He remembered the move clearly. 2 truckloads, 1 trip each, finished by noon. His mother made sandwiches at the new place, a smaller house further up the hollow, and his father sat at the table and did not talk much. That was the year Virgil decided he would own land someday. Not rent it, own it, something no one could raise the price on and nothing could take away. It took him 27 years. He started working at 14, grocery deliveries, then a feed store, then driving a gravel truck for a road paving company out of Hazard for 11 years. He saved carefully and spent carefully and kept a notebook in his shirt pocket where he wrote down every dollar he set aside and what it was for. By 1983, when he was 34 years old, he had $12,400 in a savings account, and he had been watching a 94-acre parcel at the end of Gravel Pit Road for 2 years. The land had been in a family named Combs since the 1930s. The last Combs who worked it was an old man named Luther, who had no children and whose wife had died in 1979. Luther Combs wanted to sell. He did not want a corporation to buy it. He did not want a developer to buy it. He had grown up watching men from outside the county come in and take things, and he was 79 years old and tired of watching. He sold it to Virgil Slade for $14,200. Virgil borrowed $1,800 from his brother-in-law to make up the difference and paid it back in 8 months. Before he signed the deed, Luther Combs went to his back room and came back with a cardboard tube, the kind used for architectural drawings. The tube was brown, slightly dented at one end, sealed with a plastic cap that was loose with age. Luther set it on the table between them. He said, "That's the survey my daddy had done in 1934 when he bought this land." He said, "It shows every line, every corner, every stake." He said, "You keep it. You'll need it before I will." Virgil took the tube. He thanked Luther Combs. He drove home and put the tube on the top shelf of his bedroom closet, behind his wife Norma's winter hats, and he did not think about it again for 42 years. The county's claim, when Virgil's daughter Karen looked into it, turned out to have a specific origin. It was not a new claim. It was a revival. Somewhere in the Breathitt County tax records, an administrative error dating to the late 1980s had resulted in tax bills for the 94-acre parcel being sent to the wrong address, an address that no longer existed, associated with a property transfer that had been partially recorded and partially not. The bills went out. They came back undelivered. After 3 years of returned mail, the county had flagged the parcel as tax delinquent under a process that was, by the letter of the statute, entirely correct. The error was not malicious. No individual had decided to take Virgil's land. The system had processed the error the way systems process errors, consistently, automatically, and without anyone looking closely enough to notice that Virgil Slade had been paying his property taxes every year, correctly, in full, on time, on a parcel ID that differed by a single digit from the one the county had flagged as delinquent. 1 digit. The kind of error made in 1988 when a county records clerk transferred handwritten ledger entries to an early computer system, working through hundreds of parcels on a Tuesday afternoon with no one checking behind them. The county had not intended to take Virgil Slade's land. The county had simply never noticed that it was his. The man whose name appeared on the auction filing was the Breathitt County Property Valuation Administrator, a position held since 2019 by a man named Gerald Purvis. Gerald Purvis had not reviewed the Slade parcel personally. It had gone through his office the same way 11 other parcels had gone through his office. Processed, flagged, scheduled, noticed. His signature appeared at the bottom of the orange notice because it was required to appear there. He had signed 11 of them. None of the prior 9 successful auctions had produced a challenge. Karen Slade drove down from Lexington on a Wednesday. She was 47 years old and worked in insurance underwriting and understood paperwork the way her father understood fence lines. She spent that Wednesday evening at Virgil's kitchen table with a yellow legal pad, going through every piece of documentation Virgil had kept since 1983. Virgil's records were not organized the way Donald Cook's had been organized. They were not organized at all in the strict sense. They were kept in a cardboard box under the kitchen desk, a banker's box that had originally held printer paper and that had accumulated 39 years of tax receipts, assessment notices, mortgage payoffs, water rights paperwork, and a laminated copy of the original deed. The original deed itself, not the laminated copy, the original, was kept in an envelope rubber-banded to the underside of the kitchen desk drawer. Virgil had put it there in 1987 and had not thought about it since. Karen found the rubber-banded envelope at 8:40 in the evening. She peeled it open carefully. The deed was 2 pages, typed on heavy paper that had gone slightly brittle at the folds. The parcel ID in the upper right corner was the correct one, the one Virgil had been paying taxes on for 39 years, not the 1-digit variant the county had flagged. She set it aside and kept looking. At 9:15, she asked her father about the cardboard tube. Virgil looked at her for a moment. Then he got up from the table, went to the bedroom, came back 4 minutes later with a slightly dented brown tube, and set it on the table between them. The plastic cap at one end was loose with age. Karen pried it off and slid the contents out carefully onto the kitchen table. It was a survey map, hand-drawn, on paper that had yellowed at the edges but remained intact at the center. The measurements were in feet, marked at each corner stake with hand-lettered numbers. The surveyor's name was printed in the lower right corner, a man named G.W. Feltner, licensed surveyor, Breathitt County, Kentucky, along with a date, August 22, 1934. The property lines on the map matched, to the inch, the lines of the parcel the county was now claiming as its own. Along the northern boundary, someone had drawn a faint pencil line and written 2 words in the margin. The handwriting was old, angular, slightly faded. It said, "Our land." Karen looked at the map for a long time. Then she looked at her father. She said, "Who wrote that?" Virgil said, "Luther's daddy, I expect." She picked up her phone and called a lawyer. The lawyer was a man named Thomas Birch, who had practiced property law in eastern Kentucky for 27 years, and whose office in Hazard occupied the 2nd floor of a building that had been a hardware store in 1961. He was 59 years old and not easily impressed. Karen described the situation on the phone in 6 minutes flat. He asked 4 questions. He said he would need to see the survey. He drove to Virgil's house on a Friday afternoon and spent 2 hours at the kitchen table. He reviewed the 1934 survey, the original 1983 deed, 39 years of tax receipts, and the county's orange notice. He cross-referenced the parcel IDs in the county's notice against Virgil's deed and confirmed what Karen had suspected. He was quiet for a while after that. He said, "The county doesn't have a claim. They have an error that ran long enough to look like a claim." He said, "This survey is the problem for them. because it existed before the error did, by 49 years. He said, "I can file an injunction to halt the auction by Monday. I would like to do that." He was not certain they would win. He said so plainly. He said the county's attorneys would argue the statutory process had been followed correctly regardless of the underlying error, and that argument was not frivolous. He said it would likely come down to the survey and the deed and how clearly the original ownership could be established in front of a judge or, if it came to that, at the auction itself. It came to that. The auction was held at 10 in the morning on June 7th in the parking lot of the Breathitt County Courthouse, which was the way public land auctions had been held in that county for as long as anyone could remember. There was a folding table with a county seal on the front, and a man from the county clerk's office standing behind it with a clipboard and a gavel. There were 7 registered bidders. 3 of them appeared to be land investors. 2 were local. The other 2 nobody recognized. Gerald Purvis arrived at 9:52. He wore a suit and carried a folder. He nodded to the county clerk and stood near the table. Virgil Slade arrived at 9:58. He wore a clean shirt and carried nothing. Thomas Birch arrived beside him carrying a cardboard tube. The clerk called the auction to order at 10:03. He read the parcel description, the statutory citation, and the minimum opening bid, $8,400, and asked for the first offer. Thomas Birch spoke before any bidder did. He said, "Before this auction proceeds, I need to enter a formal objection on behalf of the titled owner of this parcel." The clerk said, "Sir, this auction has been properly noticed under statute." Thomas Birch said, "I understand that. I'm entering the objection for the record." He walked to the folding table. He unrolled the cardboard tube. He placed the 1934 survey map on the table, waited at the corners with his phone, his pen, a coffee cup belonging to the county clerk, and a rock he had picked up from the parking lot. Then he placed the original 1983 deed beside it, and beside that, a one-page summary of 39 consecutive years of tax payment records, all under the correct parcel ID. He said, "This land has been privately titled and continuously taxed under documented private ownership since 1934. The parcel ID discrepancy that generated the delinquency flag was a county administrative error from 1988. I have the documentation of continuous correct payment. The county does not have documentation of a single tax payment under the flagged ID because there was never a legitimate owner paying taxes under that ID. There was only a clerical transposition." The clerk looked at the documents. He looked at Gerald Purvis. He looked at the 7 registered bidders who had gone quiet. He said, "I need to make a call." He called the county attorney's office. The call lasted 9 minutes. During those 9 minutes, no one at the auction spoke above a murmur. Gerald Purvis looked at the survey map on the table and did not look away from it. The clerk ended the call. He picked up the gavel. He set it down without using it. He said, "This auction is adjourned pending county legal review." The 7 registered bidders left. Gerald Purvis left without speaking to anyone. Thomas Birch re-rolled the survey map and slid it back into the cardboard tube and capped it. Virgil Slade watched all of this without moving from where he stood. His hands were in his pockets. He had not spoken since arriving. The county attorney's office issued a formal withdrawal of the auction and tax delinquency designation 19 days later. The letter stated that a review had identified an administrative error originating in 1988 and that the parcel had been incorrectly flagged. The county's claim was withdrawn in full. A subsequent filing by Thomas Birch under Kentucky's wrongful governmental action statute resulted in a court order requiring the county to reimburse Virgil Slade's legal fees, $22,400. The county was additionally required to conduct a full audit of all 11 parcels processed through the same flagging procedure. 6 of the 9 prior auctions were found to have involved the same class of administrative error. 3 of those cases were reopened. Virgil Slade got his legal fees. He did not get back the 9 weeks he had spent not knowing. He drove out to the property that evening after the withdrawal letter arrived. He walked the fence line along the north edge the same way he did every Monday morning, except it was a Thursday, and he had not planned to come out that day. He walked it all the way to the northeast corner, where a cedar post his father-in-law had helped him set in 1987 still stood, still straight. He drove home. He went to the kitchen. He picked up the cardboard tube from the counter where it had been sitting for the past 6 weeks, and he slid the survey map out and looked at it one more time. The pencil line along the northern boundary. The 2 words in the angular, faded handwriting of a man who had died before Virgil was born. Our land. He rolled the map carefully, the same direction it had been rolled for 42 years. He slid it back into the tube. He pressed the plastic cap into place. He carried it to the bedroom and put it back on the top shelf of the closet, behind Norma's winter hats, in the same spot it had waited since 1983. Then he went back to the kitchen and made a sandwich. Some men fight loudly. Virgil Slade was not that kind of man. He had driven a gravel truck for 11 years and saved every dollar and waited until he could buy the land, and then he had bought it and taken care of it for 39 years without making a sound about any of it. The county's system had made an error. He had the document that predated the error by 49 years. The rest was paperwork. Luther Combs had known something when he handed over that tube. He was 79 years old and had worked the same land since he was a boy, and he had watched people from outside try to take things his whole life. He knew what a survey was worth. He knew what 1934 meant on a document when someone told you the land wasn't yours. He gave the tube to the right man. Here is the question I keep thinking about. Virgil Slade had that survey for 42 years and never looked at it. He didn't know exactly what was in it. He just knew to keep it because Luther told him to. If he had thrown it away, the way most people would throw away an old tube from a dead man's back room, the auction happens on June 7th, and Virgil Slade loses 94 acres he spent 27 years saving up to buy. Tell me in the comments, would you have kept that tube? Or would it have ended up in the trash? I'll see you next story.